The human level of consciousness has a spectrum, and there are several levels of selfhood within the ego, several levels within the soul, and even within the Godhead itself. There is the Holy Spirit, there is Shakti, the Divine Mother, and there is Shiva, the Supreme Father. They are different, but they are the same. And the triad is produced out of the dyad, and the dyad is the manifestation of non-duality appearing as two in order for there to be polarities that create the energy of love. Just like a battery has a negative and a positive head that must meet, and then the circuit of energy flows. So the Shakti flows because of the duality, but only because that duality is really non-duality. Because love is union, is oneness. And it's the paradox of oneness and duality at every level that creates the energy that produces the apparent movement of the world in time. And in the antimatter universe, which exists in the same space but a different time, we are now at the moment when both clocks are reaching the same midnight. And the two will be in the same space and the same time, which will bring us into timelessness. And so this is the moment of the great revelation, the great redemption, the great withdrawal into the emptiness of non-manifestation, and the moment of the fullness of the return to God in absolute consciousness, from which a new dream of beauty, of joy, of love will be manifested out of that infinite love that is the self. And so all is good, all is perfect, all is blessing. But our function now is to be at the highest level of our selfhood, no longer in the lower, limited levels of selfhood identified with a mortal body, because the whole cosmos is the body of God. The cosmos is therefore your body. This is the Mahasutratma. But because the self is ultimately bodiless, that body, like every other body, will withdraw into its unmanifest essence. Energy is returning to essence. Shakti is returning into union with Shiva. At every level, the dyad is becoming unified. And so, because that essence of the God self is within you, You are being moved by the will of God in every moment. You are being dreamed by God. You are being lived by the will of God. You are nothing other than that. And therefore you are nothing other than God's essence, which is infinite love, blissful love, and intelligence, chit, wisdom. And when wisdom and love combine into one, there is power. And that power is the power to heal, the power to make whole, the power to realize unity, the power to transform the dream field into its self-recognition as the mind and heart of God. And this is the function of those humans who are attuned to that level of the supreme selfhood, that the will of God will work through your mind, your love, your body, your will, which will be God's will, and will function in magical and miraculous ways. But only when there is no longer any trace of separation, no longer a trace of duality or differential between your consciousness and the supreme consciousness of the one self. So whatever boundaries, whatever separation, whatever membranes of forgetfulness, whatever veils you have installed to keep you separate from God, it is our duty now to remove them. That is the practice of Sat Yoga, to remove the veils. This is God's command and God's will, so that no illusion of separation will remain, no illusion of duality, no illusion of mortality. And no trace of the ego mind and its patterns and algorithms of thought and desire and fear. None of that will remain when you have achieved the realization of who you are. At the highest level of your being. And it is this level that all the other levels are now being withdrawn back into, just as the cosmos itself is being drawn back into the Absolute. As if the spider is withdrawing its web back into itself. This is the nivritti wave that is returning us to that moment of destruction and creation that are simultaneous. The end and the beginning. And we are very close to that ultimate auspicious moment. And it is the function of Sat Yogis to usher in that moment and prepare the world for that moment by filling the morphogenic field with that information and that vibrational frequency of love, so that no one suffers, no one is in fear, no one is lost but all will be able to attune to that master frequency from which our being derives. And so this is our mission, our task, to emanate that vibrational frequency that can only manifest when the mind has become completely still, when there are no longer any obstructing thoughts of the ego. The ego mind must be dead for the mind of God to become fully alive and manifest in power to transform the noosphere so that every consciousness will be illumined by the presence of God. And it is this function that completes our service and ends all karmic debt